Tonight, we delve into the stories no one tells, the ones whispered about in campgrounds and ranger stations, the ones from national parks no one dares to write down, like the remote ridge in the Bitterroot Range and the ancient stone spire the locals call Devil's Tooth, where clawed shadows walk beside the trail. Families vanish, campsites are torn apart, and sometimes, just sometimes, something comes back with the ones who survive. Welcome to Whispers After Dark, where shadows talk and the night listens. We would like to ask that you take a moment to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss an episode. And now, terror at Devil's Tooth. Some disappearances scream, others whisper, pulling entire lives out of the world without a sound. That's what happened in the Bitterroots. They were just a family on a weekend trip. Brian and Carla Carter and their two kids, Evan and Molly. Locals, familiar. The kind of people the Rangers waved to each season. They'd parked their red Silverado in Lot 6 at the foot of Devil's Tooth Ridge, signed the trail log, and hiked in with two backpacks, a cooler, and a weathered yellow tent. A ranger remembered the daughter had a stuffed fox clipped to her backpack. Something about it stuck. They were due out Monday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, no one had seen them. Ranger Adam Keller knew the path to their assigned site. He'd hiked it hundreds of times. But that morning, the trees felt wrong, still, watching. The kind of silence that presses against your eardrums until your own breath feels too loud. It took 6 miles to reach the clearing. The first thing he noticed was the absence of sound. No squirrels, no wind, not even insects. Just the slow creak of nylon as the tent shifted slightly in a breeze that didn't exist. Their sight looked paused. One child's sneaker sat alone near the cooler, laces tangled like it had been kicked off mid-step. The firewood was stacked too neatly. The tent was zipped halfway, open just enough to see that sleeping bags inside were still unrolled, one of them balled in a way that suggested a child had clutched it tight. He circled the tent and stopped cold. The side facing the woods had been ripped to shreds. The nylon hung in ragged strips, clawed from the bottom up, as if something had crawled in, not out. The rips were too clean for a bear, too narrow, something with precision. One of the sleeping bags was partially pulled through the rip, the fabric stretched tight like it had snagged on something mid-yank. Tufts of synthetic stuffing littered the grass. A trail of boot prints, tiny ones, disappeared into the tree line. No return prints, no adult stride beside them. Near the fire pit, the camp chairs were overturned and cracked, one leg snapped clean like it had been stomped. A metal cup lay crushed in the dirt, the handle twisted off entirely. Carla's phone, half buried in the ash, was still on but smeared with something dark that dried in rivulets down the screen. But bears didn't unzip tents. Bears didn't stalk quietly in the night, and bears didn't leave claw marks in perfect arcs, 5-pronged, narrow, and dug deep into the cooler's lid like fingers reaching in. Something else had been there, something that watched, and chose, and took. Adam called out, nothing answered. Then he saw the first drag mark, like something heavy had been pulled toward the edge of the trees. The forest floor was gouged, and in the loose dirt just past the rocks, claw marks, long, too long, and not like any bear he'd seen. These weren't curved like paws, they were deep, straight, like fingers, and there were 4 of them. He radioed in, quiet, clipped. Campsite located, no individuals present, signs of possible struggle, continuing on toward the ridge. But something in his chest had already curled in. He hadn't found the family. He'd found where they disappeared. The forest felt wrong as he pushed deeper in, past the tangle of brush and claw-marked trees. The air grew heavier, pressing against his lungs like wet wool. No birds, no bugs, just silence, thick and still, like the woods were holding their breath. Adam's boots sank into soft, churned-up soil, and he paused. Something had moved through here recently, something large. The undergrowth was shred, snapped branches hanging limp like broken limbs. He followed the path with his hand on the grip of his sidearm, but he already knew it wouldn't help. Whatever had passed through here hadn't left bear scat. No fur, just grooves in the dirt, deep ruts, too wide for claws. It looked like something had been dragged. It was the plush toy that stopped him cold. A small, dirt-smeared fox lying on its side, half buried under a heap of leaves. He crouched down, brushing it off with a shaking hand. One button eye was missing. The stitching on its paw had come loose, revealing tufts of stuffing. Adam stood up and scanned the trees, heart hammering. That's when he heard it, a soft whimper, barely more than breath. Not far, just beyond a splintered thicket. He pushed through the limbs, not caring about the scratches it left across his arms. There, huddled at the base of a massive tree root, was Molly. She was filthy. Her jeans were torn and bloody at the knees. Her face was streaked with dirt and something darker, but her arms were wrapped tight around her legs, and her eyes were wide open, staring past him. At first, she didn't respond. He knelt slowly, whispering her name, and held out the fox toy. When she finally blinked and looked up, her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She took the fox, clutched it tightly to her chest, her little fingers white with tension. Adam scooped her into his arms and stood. She didn't fight, didn't speak. But her head turned as he backed away from the clearing, and her eyes stayed fixed on the ridge behind them. Just before he stepped into the brush, she whispered hoarsely, barely audible, but he felt it all the same. It's hungry. The walk back was slower. The weight of Molly in his arms wasn't the problem. It was the feeling, like they weren't alone, like something moved just behind them, always just out of sight. He didn't stop. He didn't look back. But when they reached the trailhead and the ranger station came into view, Molly let out a breath and buried her face in his neck. That's when Adam heard it, the low rasp of breath behind him. Wet. Close. He turned. Nothing. Back at the station, they called in the disappearance. Search teams combed the area for 3 days, but no sign of the family was ever found. Not even footprints. Just the torn campsite, the blood, and the marks in the earth that no tracker could explain. Molly never spoke again. Not about that day. Not about what she saw. Adam hadn't stopped thinking about the Carter family. Even after filing his final report, the image of that campsite stayed with him. The half-zipped tent, the shredded fabric, the toy fox clutched to a girl's chest like it was her last lifeline. When Molly was found, she wouldn't speak. Not at first. She just stared past everyone with wide, unblinking eyes. Her fingers wrapped so tightly around the plush animal that her knuckles turned white. Eventually, Adam was allowed into the hospital room to check on her. It wasn't protocol, but the nurses knew he was the one who found her, and no one said no. The room smelled of antiseptic and sweat. The lights buzzed faintly overhead. Molly looked small, lying on the hospital bed, the toy fox curled to her chest like it was breathing. She didn't react when Adam brushed the hair from her face, didn't look up, just kept staring at nothing. He knelt beside her quietly, unsure what he even planned to say. "Molly," he whispered. Her lips didn't move, but her eyes flicked toward him, just for a second. And then she whispered back, "It's still hungry." Then 3 weeks later, it happened again. Another disappearance. After the Carter family vanished, the forest seemed to fall into a hush that Adam didn't like. Even the ravens were quieter. The weather had turned. Clear skies, cool air, early snow dusting the higher ridgelines. The kind of days that lured in off-grid hikers with expensive gear and more confidence than caution. Their names were Rachel and Dean Moreland, mid-30s, experienced campers, newly married. According to the registration log, they'd parked near the same trailhead the Carters had used. A ranger noted their arrival, remembered their smiles. Dean joked about proposing a second time under the stars. Rachel had carried a camera bag slung over her shoulder and a journal tucked under one arm. They planned to be gone 2 nights. By the 3rd morning, their truck was still there. Adam got the call at sunrise. He drove up alone. He followed the same trail. Snowmelt softened the ground just enough to show signs of their passing. 2 sets of boot prints, then later, a third. Something larger, clawed. When he reached the campsite, he stopped cold. The tent was silent and half collapsed, slashed like the last one, just crumpled inward like a hand had pressed down from above. Their gear lay scattered, half buried in snow and pine needles. Rachel's journal was open on the ground, pages fluttering in the breeze. A ring of rocks where their fire had been was smeared with something black and sticky. Not ash. Something else. Dean's coat hung from a branch 12 feet up. No blood, no bodies, just absence. Adam scanned the trees. The silence was unnatural. No birds, no rustle of wind through pine needles. Just stillness. And then a low scrape, like claws dragging over stone. He turned in time to see a flicker of movement near the base of Devil's Tooth Ridge. Something too tall, too thin. Not running, not hiding, watching. Adam raised his radio to call it in, and then the radio went dead. He backed away, his breath fogging in the cold, his boots crunching the frosted underbrush. The shape moved again, closer now, and behind it something darker slithered low to the ground. He couldn't make out its full form, only the suggestion of limbs too long and a mouth that didn't close all the way. Adam ran. Later, he'd say he didn't remember getting back to the truck. Only the pounding of his heart and the feeling that something was behind him the entire way. Not chasing, just following, matching each step. The Morelands were never found. And Molly, the girl from the first disappearance, she still won't speak. Just rocks slowly in her chair at the group home, clutching her worn fox plush like it's the only thing keeping her grounded. Her eyes are rimmed in red, always wide, always watching. Sometimes she whispers into its torn ear, as if it whispers back. The doctors call it trauma, a coping mechanism. But Adam doesn't believe that anymore. Because the last time he visited, she stopped rocking. She looked right at him, dead center, and in a voice that wasn't hers at all, low, guttural, ancient, she rasped, "Your turn." Then she smiled. Later, a nurse entered the room to check on her. The fox was in the trash, face down, soaked in something dark. Molly was on the bed, crisscrossed legs, coloring bright suns and stick figures. Cartoons flickered on the wall-mounted TV. When the nurse asked how she was feeling, Molly looked up with big, innocent eyes. "I'm hungry," she said. Outside, Adam climbed into his truck and shut the door. The silence inside felt wrong, too still. He adjusted the mirror and froze. The reflection wasn't him. Something wild stared back, its eyes glowing amber gold, slitted like a predator's. The skin was stretched too tight, the teeth too long. A slow, vibrating growl filled the cab, deep and primal, rattling the air like it was coming from inside the bones of the truck. And then, just Adam. Normal, breathing, calm. A smile curled on his lips. Thunder rolled in the distance, long and low. Lightning spidered across the sky as the first cold raindrops tapped against the windshield. He turned the key and drove into the storm. Thanks for joining us tonight on Whispers After Dark, where shadows talk and the night listens. We hope you've enjoyed this chilling tale from deep in the Bitterroot Range, where families vanish, claw marks scar the trees, and something ancient waits just beyond the light. If you ever find yourself near Devil's Tooth Ridge and you hear branches snapping in the dark, don't look back. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a tale of horror and mystery. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and beware of the whispers after dark.